Uh, my name is Monk Rowe, and I'm happy to be with Carol Sudhalter today. You are the first person that I've met with under these circumstances.
Mhm.
It would be interesting to gather some stories about how musicians are faring in these difficult times. Generally speaking, how are you doing?
I am one of the lucky ones, Monk. I mean, definitely, I'm doing just fine. It's not, that different for me, and the ways in which it's different are very positive ways.
Well, tell me about that.
Okay. So, most of the time in my life, I spend alone, just like I am now, at my house, preparing my lessons, cooking, practicing, and doing computer work, and that continues. Um, Mostly every afternoon, well, most of my income, I should say, comes from lessons, flute, sax, tenor sax, alto sax, piano, and clarinet lessons house to house, which obviously is not an option now. I imagined at the beginning that most of my students would be running out of money and not be able to pay for online lessons because their jobs are closed. And that's not the case at all. I completely misjudged. This is an affluent community, and they were very anxious to continue lessons. It also helps them because obviously the moms are very overwhelmed
Right.
right now in a way they never expected. So I would say that out of all these, like I have between 25 and 30 students, all but 3 families have signed on. So that's a big load. I am teaching every day, 7 days, instead of the usual 6. I I try to keep the mornings for myself and the evenings for myself, and that's working out well. So I start 12, 1, finish around 6, and I try to give myself breaks in between lessons because it's very intense. You do need breaks. I really need to rest.
How,
It's a lot more intense than in-person lessons.
where before you were traveling to people's homes?
Yeah, it was a good 25 miles at least every day each way.
Mhm.
So 50 miles a day, 6 days a week, and sometimes a little bit more than that.
Have the students, have you noticed a difference in their motivation and how well they prepare for their lessons?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Well, most of these kids are playing bands at school, and the bands keep them practicing on their horns. The bands meet 2 or 3 times a week. So now they don't have that. Once in a while, their school bands write to them and say, please record this piece. We have a click track. So they do that. But mostly they're not practicing that much. They're not playing their horns that much. But the compensating factor is that I am finally able to give them a little bit of theory and give them what I want to give them. With 3 students, I'm using the Coker book, Patterns for Jazz, and they eat it right up. They like it. And with others, I'm, at least extending the scales up to the 9th and starting to teach them the arpeggios, at least on the 1 chord. For some more advanced students, I have one who's so advanced, I don't even need to send him a copy of a book. I can just tell him what pattern it is, and he just immediately, no matter how complex, he puts it into every key right away. He's very smart.
I think you
And
mentioned this student during our first interview.
probably did.
Yeah.
In some cases, if they're really young, the parent tries to make time to sit with them, and that works a lot better because they're kind of shy. The little ones are kind of shy of the online lessons. They're a little scared.
I noticed I did a little bit of it to finish the Hamilton semester. And I also experienced that sort of intensity. I'm not sure what it comes from, but it does sort of drain you.
Well, for me, part of it is, I mean, just the physical presence of the kids is so delightful. And they do these funny things, they pull the wrinkles on my arm or crazy stuff, and the parent brings me a cup of coffee. It really makes it a lot more anecdotal.
Yeah, you're taking the social element is out of it. And
And I get to say hello to the dogs. All the dogs are my friends.
I hadn't thought of that. So it's not so much what it adds on, what it takes away, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's both.
Yes.
But that's, I think, what makes it so intense is that it's really. So now I have a system. I have a beautiful big folder, with note cards for every kid, every lesson. I take notes. I know exactly where I am. I have my books all organized, so I know which books to pull out. I don't normally have to do that, and that makes it a lot easier. So every day I pull out my huge notebook. It's a 3-ring,
Mhm.
and then I pull out the files for the kids I'm going to teach that day, and then I pull out those books and I look over my notes and I practice those instruments, and then I'm all ready.
Wow. Are you
So yeah.
I don't know what sort of platform you're using, but can you play with them at the same time?
I haven't found a platform where you can do that. I do, but I know there's always a delay.
Right.
So I'm asking the parents to try to have like a second device available so they can have something to play along with. In other words, like I just discovered that on YouTube you can adjust the speed of the files.
Right.
Yeah, so they can go to a YouTube of a Jamie Abersold, especially if it's somebody playing along with it, then it doesn't have to be me playing along. And they can slow that down if it's too fast and use it as a study tool. But if they use it on FaceTime on the same device, then I can't hear it,
Right. Yeah,
It breaks it up.
I had to have a student hit me to that thing about YouTube.
Me too. A student just told me.
We learn a lot from our students these days
Oh, we sure do.
about technology.
As far as as far as gigs, I don't do that many gigs compared to some people. I don't live off gigs. And I mean, it's partly choice and partly the way things turned out, but
Mhm.
I'm very happy to be just home practicing. And the one steady gig that's a paying gig that I have, I'm continuing online. So if you don't mind, I'll tell you about that.
Yeah.
Um, it's Flushing Town Hall in Queens. It's a very nice, well-run, prestigious, state-of-the-art organization that presents concerts all the time. And I run the jam session once a month. It's a very well-attended jam session. It's called the Louis Armstrong Legacy Flushing Town Hall Jazz Jam Session, monthly jazz jam, because it's funded by the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation. And well, it's so popular. I've been doing it for maybe 4 or 5 years, and it's growing and growing, and the audience is super supportive, and we get all this incredible variety of players, all levels, a lot of good kids too, And so we decided to try and put that online, and the only way we could do it was that it was not any longer a jam session, but people record a piece at home, not a professional, not like their CD or something, but just record a piece either alone or with a track or with a partner, and then send it in to the engineer, and he strings them up. And if somebody wants to play live, they can, but the quality isn't as good and it tends to freeze. So sending in works really well. And I'm still the moderator, and I still do all the credits and acknowledgments and introductions. And the house band, as usual, we play tunes associated with Louis Armstrong. So we still have all our house band members. And now the advantage is this, that we get participants from all over the world,
Oh,
which you cannot do at a live jam. So last month we had New Zealand, Australia, Italy, and Germany. And the month before that we had Colorado, Italy, and a few other places. I can't remember.
are people able to chime in with comments?
They do, yeah. I mean, we try to have as many people as possible present. It's a little late for Italy. You know, it's in the middle of the night for them, but sometimes they do as well. So you can see on the screen, the participants are allowed to be on the screen in those little boxes. And they don't comment during the music. They can write little notes on the chat, but
Right.
at the beginning we had comments during the music and it really became a little chaotic. So we mute them now, but everyone has a chance to say hello at the beginning, like around 7:30, to say in greeting, whatever they want to say. And at the end, we also open up the mics for the audience or anyone that wants to say a nice, hello. And we are getting a lot of the members of our usual audience, many are senior citizens, but they're still able to get on either by phone or by Zoom. It's wonderful.
Well, congratulations. I, I, I'm amazed at people, the ingenuity that is happening. Um, and I'm starting to wonder if when we're going to assume that someday we're going to be back to normal, if things will return to where they were, or in your case, you're talking about this has been a positive thing. Might you end up doing both, a live jam and online jam?
It depends, I guess, on the budget, but that would be great. I would love to. We need more time every month. We'd never have enough time for all the players. I mean, it's always a stress for me to try to fit everyone in on the evening. I try to call them up one at a time rather than 2 or 3 at a time, and give them a chance in the live session.
I'm not sure what you're calling them up.
Okay, so, I mean, when they come in and sign the sign-up list in the live jam, there might be 32 players and we only have short of 3 hours. So some jam sessions call up 2 or 3 players at a time to play with the house band. But I try to call them up one by one, unless they're a set group. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Okay. So it takes some time and we usually can just barely fit everyone in. At the end, we usually have a big jam number, like a blues or something, where everybody gets up and sings or plays, and it's really sweet. I thought that up. I'm trying to think if there's a way to do that online. Have everybody do one chorus of a blues and pass it from one to the other, but I'm not sure if everybody could stay in the same key that way and stuff. Maybe. I'm working on it.
Yeah, I think the things you see with orchestras playing together, I believe they must have some really high-tech things going on there.
Yeah, there's stuff you can buy. But we did a good one at the last jam. I did, on baritone sax, I did I'll Walk Alone. And Joe Tranchina, he's our house pianist. And he made me a track. He sent it to me. I played along with it on this tune. Then he sent it to the drummer and the bass player, and they played a track. And then Joe did a beautiful mix. He lined them up. It took him a few hours, and you can hear it, if you go on that recording of the last jam. It came out so sweet, really, really warm, It breathed. A lot of the stuff online doesn't breathe, but it breathed.
Ah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Are there things that you had to stop doing? Maybe seeking out gigs or something that took a lot of effort and time that you really don't miss now and might not return to it?
Yeah. In music, though, not in life in general, you mean?
I think either.
God, I mean, it's so different. I have some strange habits that I've set up, in my schedule. For instance, to get to Long Island without traffic to teach, I go like an hour or two early, and then I just kill time, either just sitting in the car, doing email or shopping, just walking around in stores. I don't think I'll probably go back to that. I mean, it's like little things like that. Oh, I don't know. I'm not that interested in like restaurants and coffee shops and stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I really like cooking. I don't know. Musically, I have to think about that, but gigs are good. I just don't miss them in the same way as some people do. It's so life or death now. It just doesn't seem like a relevant question. I mean, it's the health question is such a matter of life or death. It's like, I don't know. I mean, it's like I just put everything aside.
I think I know what you mean.
Like it's an emergency.
Yes, when the cancellations for me started to come in, you sort of got in this mode. Oh, there's another one. There's another one. And pretty soon, there were no gigs in the foreseeable future. And
Yeah.
it was easy to be angry and depressed about it until you put it in a context, as you're suggesting, that, yeah, it's bad, but relative to other things, it's not that huge an issue.
Right. I mean, it's like a worldwide hurricane, except there's no real end in sight. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave or a second peak in this wave. And you can die from it. And I'm in that age. I could die too. But that being said, it's easy for me to say because I have a job. So I'm not experiencing that frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And on the contrary, I like having a chance to be home and rest and not have to drive all that time.
Did you feel responsible for anyone else? For instance, your house band with the jam session, when it became obvious that this wasn't going to be able to, did you feel responsible for those other musicians and trying to find a way for them to continue that?
Yeah. And I keep after them trying to explain, like normally at the beginning of the session, actually we only do 2 tunes as a house band before bringing up the rest of the audience participants. And I told them everybody should do a tune. I told Scott, Scott, the drummer, Scott Newman.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Scott, you do a tune too. You can just play it on drums or use a track. He decided to sing. I told the whole band to think up tunes associated with Louis Armstrong so that we could keep our status as a band and be participant in a special way. We did put that quartet tune together, but that's a lot of work for whoever mixes it. So, but yeah, I do feel responsible and I'm trying as much as I can. So, but I mean, certainly teaching, I could do what we're doing with the jam. I could get students from all over the world by online.
Mm-hmm.
As you go, you find out which instruments work best and which platforms work best. And I could teach somebody in any country by this way. And I think I was shy of that before.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I didn't really.
I had not done any of it myself.
No.
It'll be curious to see if, when you're able to go back and make house calls, so to speak, if any of the parents will say, you know, we let's stick with the online. They won't have
That would
coffee for you.
that would be very interesting. I mean, of course, I mean, you've gotten into it a bit now, right? Yourself?
Finished the semester at Hamilton, so I had about 5 weeks of it.
Well, I don't know, you probably don't have the kids that haven't quite gotten it together to set up the read before you get on, or they spend 10 minutes looking for their music. Then you can tear your hair out.
Right.
Or they're out for a bike ride and the mom forgot to tell them.
And you get to hear them going, come on inside now.
Yeah, and they apologize and some offer to pay me and all that if they messed up the schedule, but that's real frustrating. But I understand it. You know, they've got a lot on their plates.
Right.
One kid the other night, he manipulated me. You know, he told me that there was an emotional problem with a sibling and we just don't know what to do about it, so it's not a good time. His parents weren't even home.
Oh.
There was no we, you know. So.
There's always a way to manipulate the system.
Yeah.
This is a fairly deep question. I wonder if you have an opinion about the government response to this pandemic, either from the local or state.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. I mean, if you compare all the countries in the world, you know, the dictatorial types like our president and Bolsonaro and Putin, you know, they're the ones that are having the worst pandemic experiences. We don't have it together. All these programs that were set up to prepare for a pandemic were cut out of the budget systematically over the years. Even the governor, you know, as good a job as he's doing in some ways, had cut out also funding to hospitals for Medicaid, you know, had cut out many, many things over these past few years. Extra beds, extra equipment, ventilators had been cut. So when you go back and see that, we could have been in a much better situation than we are. And then from day to day, it becomes crazier, of course. So it makes a lot of difference in people's health, yeah. I am glad people are protesting. It's about time. We'll see where it goes. Minorities are getting the rough end of the pandemic. Definitely, I agree. And we need severe, serious change in the administration, and that will affect the pandemic, and it will affect jobs and whether people can pay the rent.
Yeah. Have you lost any friends to the pandemic?
No. Oh, lost, you mean lost. Oh, I did. I lost one friend from my 12-step group. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a healthcare worker and I very much liked him. Yeah. And he was a huge contributor to the program. So yeah, he died very early on in March.
There was a period of about 7 days where it seemed like the musicians were being targeted almost. We lost Sorelli, then Mike Longo, and Ellis Marsalis, and it was very sad, of course.
Yeah, very sad. Yeah. Very, very sad. And there's one author who's on Facebook who keeps writing about the Broadway people that have died that he knew of, you know, quite a few.
Yeah. Do you think
so? No.
I'm going to say your lifestyle, figuring out how to make a living in music, sort of improvising along the way, has helped you figure out this next and this current situation?
You know, I think what's helped me is I have this kind of a cautious side to me. financially, I've always been aware that, of my age, and that I could become sick at any moment and wouldn't be able to work, that, all you have to do is fall down once and you can't drive to your lessons. And so I've always made sure to stick some money in the bank and not get caught, and try to make a mental list of what I could sell if I needed to, and that kind of thing. So I also, because of global warming and knowing you can be hit by any kind of a storm of any kind, any kind of a pollution thing or meltdown, there's so much in this world that, people tend to block out, I guess. But I listen and I try to learn and I think about all that, all the what ifs. And so I have that side, and my father had it. I got it from him. Yeah, he had it to an extreme. He always worried and bit his nails and thought about, put aside money for college since I was born or before that, and stuff like that. I don't go as far as that, but I try not to worry, but I try to concretely, keep track of that financially. So that's what I think has helped me over the years. And now, especially.
Well, it's nice to hear you're fairly upbeat, and I hope other musicians can echo some of your sentiments. I know people some of my friends who depend totally on gigs, and they have nothing. They've entered the unemployment realm, and they seem to be doing okay. I'm sure they wish they hadn't had to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, people are definitely suffering. Musicians are suffering, artists, composers, actors. Oh my God. There needs to be much more support programs and grants, and there's a good start, but it's not enough.
Right. Well, Carol, I appreciate connecting with you again.
It's great to see you.
Really, we had, in my basement is covered with posters of things I've been involved with, and we have your poster in a prominent position when you came to Hamilton.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to say that during this time, a new book came out by Royal Stokes, the author, and I have a pretty prominent place in it. He's got several entries for me, not real short either, and pictures, couple of pictures.
Oh, great. I'll look for it.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
It's called the Jazz Reader. I'll tell you in a sec. It's W. Royal Stokes, the Essential Royal Stokes Jazz, Blues, and Beyond Reader.
Okay, now we have it on tape.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. So I'm really pleased. And another guy, Peter Zimmerman, who lives upstate, he's got a new book in the works that he's just waiting for the publisher to decide what he's going to cut out,
I see.
And then I've got a chapter in there too.
Right.
So I'm happy about that.
Good. Well, I wish you continued good luck, and I'll see you on the flip side.
Yeah, I hope I will see you.
Okay.
Soon, sooner or later.
Very good.